Good evening, everybody, and welcome to tonight's On the Sofa. We're very privileged to have Shauna Hamden with us tonight, and I'm going to spring Vic straight on because I know my Wi-Fi is playing up again.
Hi, Chris.
Hi, Vic. You okay?
I'm very well, thank you. We should just throw in a couple of items of news, of course, that we've had today. Dan Kemp will not be coming back to Swindon. He's off to Stevenage. He signed a contract there. Sean McGurk has decided to stay at Swindon for another season, so it'll be great to see him play in the red and white next campaign. And also, you might just have seen the last hour or so that Swindon's kit deal with Puma has come to an end and will be coming to the end of this month. And so, therefore, we wait to see who the next kit supplier will be. So, lots of news coming out today.
Certainly is, and I've turned my video off because I think that's a bit better for my for the audio on that. So, not quite so delayed. So shall I bring Sean on now, and then I can leave you to it? As we say,
All right.
Just leave any comments in the comments box, and we'll get through as many as we can.
Evening, Sean.
Evening.
Hi, Sean.
Hi. You're okay?
Okay.
All right, Chris. Thank you very much indeed.
Oh, good. Right, I'm going to leave.
The internet problems in certain parts of Wiltshire, not brilliant. Anyway, Sean, thank you ever so much for joining us this evening. It's great to talk to you. And obviously, we'll talk about your career at Swindon. And I know you want to talk about when you left Swindon, so clear up one or two things there. So we'll get to that then a little later. But let's talk about the way you got into football, because I think on your sort of biography, it says you joined Everton in 2002, but I'm guessing that was a professional contract. You were with them for quite a while before that, weren't you?
Yeah, I was lucky enough to be scouted by Everton when I was 10, and yeah, that's when I first started at Everton and went all the way through till the age of 21. So I ended up doing 11 years with Everton. My last 2 years with the first team, and then prior to that, I was in the youth team, the under-18s, the under-16s. And yeah, right through the School of Excellence, as it was called back then.
Were you a blue or a red? Which flavour were you?
Well, yeah, I was actually a red. I was a red when I signed at 10, and then when I went to high school, all my mates were blues. And then the more I played for Everton, especially against Liverpool, the more I wanted to beat Liverpool. So I probably got to about age 12, 13, and I decided to change to a blue.
How did that go down with your mates?
Well, they were happy to get me on board as a blue. Obviously, I got a bit of stick at first, but no, it was just one of them decisions. Like playing for Everton against Liverpool, it was the main fixture of the season at that level, and you had to try your hardest to get to win those bragging rights, and it became not a hatred, but it was just something that I was desperate to beat Liverpool, and then in doing so, I turned against them and became an Evertonian. And then, of course, as I got up to like 14, 15, I used to get a couple of free tickets to the match. So me and my dad used to go to all the home games, and it just carried on from there. And I'm still a blue now, and I'm never going to change.
Wow, amazing. I mean, bearing in mind, obviously, we should say from the red half of the city, of course, we send our best wishes to Alan Hanson's family and indeed to Alan himself, who's very seriously ill. So what a player. I mean, you as a central defender would know only too well what a player he was.
Yeah, well, I mean, I just caught the back end of his career. I think my favourite player, my earliest favourite player was Ian Rush. So, Ian Rush, Alan Hansen, that late 80s, early 90s team was a cracking team with John Barnes as well. But Alan Hansen was, he was just a smooth operator, wasn't he? He'd play in any team, like Man City now, would be all over him. Someone who could play from the back, calm, quick, didn't just used to lump the ball forward, happy to play the ball across the back. And, he was a great player.
Yeah, they said he was great at reading the game. I mean, it's a phrase we often hear, but I think he was the ultimate reader of the game, wasn't he?
He was. And I think when you look at centre-backs, he didn't used to come off dirty, and he never used to break sweats. And I think that's the biggest compliment you can give a centre-half, to be honest. If you can read the game, you don't have to chase down strikers, because you just get yourself in position early on. You see the pass and you step in and intercept and then just give it to your midfielders and then get back into position. I think he was excellent at that.
Well, obviously, we pass on our very best wishes to his family and indeed to Mr. Hansen himself. What a fantastic footballer. Simple as that, really. Now, so the age of 10, you're at Everton, and you move your way through the age groups. That brought England recognition, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. It all kind of came kind of out the blue, really. I think to age 10, 11, 12, I was like a centre midfielder. Then I went up front for a little bit, just trying to find my position, to be fair. I mean, for Sunday League and the school team, I was always the centre midfielder, but at the time we had Joey Barton playing centre midfield, Bradley Orr was centre mid, so we had a good solid group of centre mids. So I kind of found myself up front around the age of 12 or 13, and then at that age I had a big massive growth spurt. So I went from just being an average size to nearly a 6-footer. So as soon as that happened, they threw me at the back, and from then I played at the back, and within probably 6 to 12 months, I was trialling out for England and getting in the under-15s team as a centre half, having never played there in my life. But that just because my physical, my attributes at that time, I was just made to be a centre half, I suppose, and that's where it all began.
I mean, with your build, you look at an actual centre half, but how did you take to it, having played in central midfield? I mean, I think you played central midfield for Swindon for a little bit, didn't you? So you kind of moved back into that.
Yeah, I always felt like the centre half I wanted to be honest, was like an Alan Hansen type centre half, because of my background. I played centre mid, and even playing up front. I enjoyed taking players on, being creative. I didn't see myself as being a big, type of Tony Adams, Martin Keown type centre half. I wanted to be a bit more of a ball playing centre half. So that's kind of how I started. But being at Everton and being coached by Colin Harvey at 16, 17 full time, he soon kind of kicked that out of me, and it was like, no, if you're going to make it as a centre half, you need to be, solid, tough, aggressive, take no chances, no risks, and learn to clear your lines. And that's kind of how I had 2 years in that youth team. That's how they wanted me to be. So it wasn't natural for me. It took me a couple of years, to become a natural at that type of player. And I think throughout my career, I had a bit of a mixture of both. I think I'd like to think.
Do you think England have moved away from that? Because we do see a lot of ball playing centre halves now, and what you call the old fashioned centre half. We don't seem to do too many. So have England moved too far away from that, do you think?
I think they have. I think the game's moved on anyway. The old-fashioned centre half, the majority, to be honest, they wouldn't even get a chance at top flight today. And that's not being disrespectful. It's just they're complete different machines. And like you say, they're not just heading and kicking. It's all about, it's Alan Hansen, basically, John Stones.
Yeah.
That's
exactly.
And he was one of the first. Theo Ferdinand was one of the first ball-playing centre halves that my era. And I think we have gone away from it a little bit. And I still think there is. I mean, Harry Maguire, I'd say, has a mixture of both. And I honestly think, he gets a lot of stick, but I do think he'll be a big miss for England in these championships, just through his physical presence and set pieces. He gets his head on things in both boxes, which I think is really important still in the modern game.
Sure. Well, hello to Jason, who's watching us from New York City. So we've gone international tonight, Sean. So how about that? So you're at Everton, and I think you played in England under 20 side with Brian Howard, didn't you? Wasn't he in that squad?
He was, yeah. Me and Brian. So I met Brian from the start, all through the England youth ages, from under 16s to under 20s. So I knew Brian. And then when I eventually did come to sign for Swindon, he was one of the few players that I actually knew. So it was nice to have a familiar face there. But yeah, Brian was a cracking player, very skillful, left-footed, and attacking player back then.
We'll talk about that side that really should have gone up in a little while. But at Everton, of course, there were one or two players who were half decent, who were in the setup. Wayne Rooney amongst them. As a young kid, what did you see in him?
Wayne Rooney was just full of confidence. just exceptional skill, strength, ball control, every attribute you could say. What was it? You know, if you try and list his weaknesses, he didn't have any for me. He was aggressive, strong. He could kick a ball. You know, he could powerful shots. He had it all, and that was from the age of 13, 14. And I was 3 years above, and he was playing in my teams when he was 13, when he was 14, and of course, once he hit like 15, he was in the first team. And then, you know, obviously physical attributes, that helps as well. Physically, he was ready. You know, he was a man at that age, built like a man. But he had everything. I seriously don't think he had a weakness. There was no weakness to his game.
Well, he's just recently taken up his third English management duties, of course, at Plymouth Argyle. It'll be interesting to see how he gets on at home park come the next season. Now, obviously, you don't quite make the breakthrough into the Everton first team, but give us an indication of how difficult that would have been, because I think in the dressing rooms around about that time was one Paul Gascoigne as well. So there was a fair quality of players around at that time, wasn't there?
Yeah, I mean, back then the academy trained away from the first team. And I think I was about 19 when I got asked to train with the first team full time. So I was going in every day, every morning with Paul Gascoigne, Duncan Ferguson, Thomas Gravison, Wayne Rooney was obviously in there. But from the centre-back point of view, we had David Weir, Alan Stubbs, Joseph Yobo, who was playing for Nigeria. And then the year above me was Peter Clark, who was the England under-21 captain. So I pretty much had four centre, but they were the four ahead of me, as well as like Steve Watson, who could play fullback, he could play centre half. Alessandro Pistoni could also do both. So I felt I was always like fifth or sixth in the pecking order, and I just couldn't see a pathway. To be honest, it was quite difficult going in, you know, every day to train, and I was involved with the squads, never on the bench, and then always playing reserves, and that's how it was for 2 years. It was quite a frustrating 2 years. But obviously David Moyes didn't think I was ready, and I probably wasn't ready, because I don't think I physically matured until I kind of, maybe my second season in Swindon. I kind of felt like I'd grew into my body and I was ready to, you know, I became a man, so to speak.
So when the time came for you to leave Everton, I mean, bearing in mind the list of players you've just given us, my goodness me, there's some players there. But when it came to the time to leave, whose decision was it? Because you came out on loan to Swindon first, didn't you? Yeah. Andy King, a former Evertonian, of course, at Swindon. So whose kind of decision was that?
Initially, it got put to me. It was the January window. I think that existed back then. I'm sure it did. I got the call. Do you want to go to Swindon for a month? It'll do you well. Do you good? You need experience. You know, if you're going to break into the first team at Everton, you need to go out and get some experience and show you can do it at that level. And that's how it was put to me. So I was like, of course, you know, obviously I want to play for Everton, and this is what I want to do. So it was just a month initially. Obviously did okay with Swindon. They renewed it for another month, and I believe on the third month it was either renew for one more month and then you go back to Everton because you can't renew again, or it was because we were in the playoffs. That month wouldn't have carried over to the playoffs, so it was renewed to the end of the season. So the option was to either renew for 1 month and that'll be the end of it, or renew to the end of the season. Now, of course, Swindon were in the playoffs, so they decided they want me to the end of the season. Now, for me personally, I would have loved to have just gone back to Everton to show that, you know, I had confidence. You know, I felt like I'd come back a different player and show David Moyes, you know, this is, you know, Sean O'Hanlon full of confidence, played 20 odd games in League One, you know, ready for next year with Everton, but I never got that chance. It was on loan to the end of the season. And then a deal was made at the end of the season where I was to stay at Swindon, and that's how it happened. So
you're a Liverpudlian and you moved to Wiltshire. How was that?
It was actually really good. I didn't honestly know where Swindon was when I spoke to Andy, and he wasn't very good at directions either. So all he told me to do was get yourself on the M62. No, not M60. Get yourself on the M6 South and give me a call when you get there. So I said, okay. Phoned him up on the M6 South. Now, where do I go? And he said, get yourself to Cheltenham and phone me. And then I got to Cheltenham, where do I go? And he literally directed me in from there. And it was only when I arrived that I realised where Swindon was. For some reason, I thought it was the southeast, not the southwest. But yeah, in terms of the team, the club felt really welcome, and it was my first. I've never lived on my own before, so it was a big big thing for me to be settled, and I just got that warmth straight away from Swindon as a whole.
Yeah, we often forget about this when young players move out on loan to clubs, don't we? That they're moving away from home, they're moving away from their family, they've got to settle into a new way of life, and I think we sometimes forget that, don't we?
I think so. I think you've got to take it into consideration with young lads, and if performance is low, then is that a reason why it's low? Because they're not settled or they're not quite happy. But for me, like I said, I knew Brian anyway. Andy Nicholas was a Scouser who was there, who was similar age. He came from Liverpool. He made me feel welcome, and from day one I was just made welcome. Open arms, and I just hit the ground running straight away. Really.
You got into a really good team there, didn't you? I mean, talk about the quality of that team. We've mentioned Brian Howard, haven't we? Parkin, Mooney. You could go on really and name them, couldn't you? I mean, what did you think of the quality when you got there?
Yeah, I didn't know what to expect. And I've came into a team which is a winning team. They were in the playoffs, I think, when I arrived, and it was all about maintaining that position, if not climbing even high and get the automatic. But I think realistically, it was all about let's stay in the playoffs and see what we can do. And we had 2 goal scorers in the team, Mooney and Parkin. And from looking back, I believe if you can have 2 strikers in your team scoring 20 goals each, then get you in the playoffs, and that's what we had that season, as well as the quality of like a Brian Howard, a Sammy Igo, and at the back, Matty Haywood, Alan Reeves was playing. Really loads of experience, and Rhys Evans in goal. Was young himself, but proven to be one of the best keepers at that level during that time.
So how do you fit into that? You said got a warm welcome. Andy Nicholas we've spoken to on this before as well, and but you obviously have to prove yourself as well. You don't just turn up and say, I'm in the team, look at me, I'm brilliant. You have to prove yourself to professionals, don't you?
Yeah, and that's what I had to do, because I came down, I think the first game was I think it was Notts County. It was my first squad, and I did come down thinking I'm playing, and Andy King said to me, we've got a 37-year-old and a 38-year-old playing at the back, centre half. If you can't get in ahead of them, then there's something wrong. And he was referring to Alan Reeves and AD Vivash, who were basically playing. I think Matty Haywood must have been injured. So I trained on the Thursday and the Friday, and then he pulled me at the hotel at Notts County and said, I don't think you've done enough. He said, I can't trust you. I don't think you've done enough. We'll have a full week of training the week after, and we'll get you in for the next game. And then it came, I think we were Blackpool away was the next one, and he pulled me on the Saturday morning in the hotel again, said, Sean, I still don't trust you. There's a reserve game in the week, and you're going to play in that. I'm going to come and watch you and see how you get on. But that, like he's just said, then I was expecting just to walk in, but it wasn't the case. I did have to prove. And as with football, you need a lucky break. And unfortunately for Steve Robinson, I think during that Blackpool game, he came off with a broken leg. They had to reshuffle the team. I think I went on at right back, and I think I played every game from then on till the end of the season. And that was.
Yeah, I mean, you look back in the years of Swindon Town, and you think that side should have gone up, but that side should have gone up, shouldn't it?
I think so. Yeah. We just had a good mix, a good blend, and I think all good teams do the blend of the youth and old. We had experience. Andy Gurney was solid in midfield. Matty Hewlett, them two, they were box to box players, but had quality, passing quality as well. And we just had that bit of youth as well. Sam Parkin, again, I think it was just all down to Andy King. To be fair, I think he deserves massive credit. Plucking out lads who get released from Premier League academy teams, and just giving them a chance, giving them an opportunity. And Sam obviously took his opportunity. Andy Nicholas did, and Brian Howard, and I'd like to think I did as well.
Yeah, and also we should mention Rory Fallon, of course, who could come on and score a goal or two, couldn't he?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at that front three now of Park and Mooney and Fallon on the bench, you know, it's as good as any today. Even I think any manager would bite your arm off to have them three in the squad. All, you know, really strong, tough men who could all score goals as well, and they proved to do so for Swindon.
Let's get to the playoffs then. And disappointment at home, a 1-0 defeat by Brighton. But for those of us who were there on the Wisdene on that wet Thursday night, I think it was, never forget that game for the wrong reasons. What are your memories of it?
I thought we were the better team. I really do. I believe that they score. Was it right at the end, or did it go extra? It went extra time, or did they get? Yeah. They got a late equalised, didn't they? Which took it.
Yeah.
Within touching distance of Wembley, and the playoff final. And for me, my regret was I didn't take a penalty. Really, I felt like because I'd only joined halfway through, I thought the lads who wanted to take a pen, I thought it would be good for them, because they've seen the whole season through. But I did take pens throughout my career, and I didn't miss, and I was always confident. And I just wish I'd said, let me take a pen. I really fancy it. So yeah, it was just disappointment to lose on pens.
Yeah, I think every time Adam Virgo comes on the television commenting on a football match these days, Swindon fans sort of hide behind the sofa because they'll remember that moment forever, I think, when he scores that late equaliser. Dreadful moment.
It was. Yeah, it really was. I'm the same.
What was the dressing room like afterwards?
Everyone was upset. Andy King. I do remember he said the words that keep your heads up, lads. We deserved it. We've had a great season. He was very positive. He even said, he said the board didn't want us to go up, and he was more disappointed that behind the scenes they were happy for us to remain in League One, because I think the financial impact it would have had on the club if we went up. And he was more frustrated and annoyed at that than the actual result. He genuinely believed we were all winners that night. We'd had a great season, and as we all do, we all think we did enough to win the tie. But I think it was just frustration at what was going on off the field that Andy was really disappointed about.
It was a rocky old time financially at Swindon, wasn't it? I mean, I don't know if that affected the players or not in any way, shape or form.
It didn't affect me personally. Like I said, I was only 21, didn't have any kids or anything like that, wasn't married, but we weren't getting paid on time. And I do remember having team meetings, and Andy would say, right, it would be the young lads first, hands up, who doesn't mind getting paid 2 or 3 weeks late this month. And the young lads, we all stuck together. Yeah, I put my hand up, Nico, Brian Howard, we'd all take the hit just so that the older lads with the kids would get paid on time to pay the mortgages and stuff. So that was the kind of time, that's what was going on, basically, when I signed. Obviously, I didn't know this was going to happen. It's nothing I discussed. But this is what was going on. The payments were being late and we weren't getting paid on time.
Wow. In a weird sort of way, that must have helped with the bonding of the team, though, mustn't it? Because if you've got other professionals in the dressing room knowing that you're sacrificing money for them, that must help with that team being more bonded.
I think so, yeah. It does. Whether or not it, if it does affect you, it's, it can affect you a little bit if you think it's out of order, and you look at what other teams are doing and it doesn't happen at other clubs and it's not fair. You can do the blame game, or you can just stick together, which is what we did. A few of us young lads, we didn't mind getting paid 1 or 2 or 3 weeks late. It didn't matter, as long as we got paid, which we did eventually. We would always get paid at some point, and it was a good team spirit. And again, credit, I can't thank him enough for giving me my debut and opportunity, but Andy King for creating that, and he was a big part of that, creating that spirit.
So that was a loan spell, and my goodness, what a loan spell you had. But then, of course, I think there was Andy King was keen to get you to Swindon, wasn't he? And there was some sort of deal involving Lee Mills going to Everton and you coming to Swindon. But as I understand, Lee Mills didn't want to go to Everton but you still came to Swindon. So how did that work?
Honestly, I don't know the ins and outs. I wasn't really interested, to be honest. All I knew that Andy wanted me to sign, and I was happy to sign. You know, I was in a really good team, so I was happy to sign. And my only wish, like I said before, was if I just had a few more months to go back to Everton and just show them, you know, what type of player I'd become. I'd grown up thanks to that spell, but I never got that chance to. But you know, obviously it was all sorted. Everton released me or let me go, or I don't know whether it was compensation. I don't know what happened, but I signed a 2-year deal and I was very happy to.
So obviously then you'd moved on with it. Once you'd signed that, you moved on from the Everton thing, had you?
Yeah. Once it was all signed, that was in the past, and I was moving on now for my career. And my career was my career goals was to get back up there. And having been so close to getting to a playoff final with Swindon, you know, I thought this was what a great place to start your career. And that
problem is, so all of a sudden, players start to leave, don't they? Like, so Sam Parkin goes off to Ipswich. You know, the team starts to break up a little bit. And how disappointing was that?
It's because you go into it blind and you've got no experience. You don't. In your naive head, you're thinking, right, we've got a good team together. Maybe add 1 or 2 players and we could really push on. But realistically, football doesn't work like that, especially clubs who are struggling financially. They're looking to offload the better players to help with the financial situations. And yeah, I think was it Tommy Mooney or Sam went first, but one of them went first, and all of a sudden you've lost 20 goals out your team. So yeah, you're just learning all the time, really, as a young player coming through. It's only when you get older you understand the situations better and you can read it better as well. But yes, I think I can't remember. Was it Sam who went first or Tommy?
Yeah, I think so. He went for 400,000 to Ipswich, and then of course got a very bad ankle injury when he was at Portman Road, which hampered his career there. And then Tommy Mooney went to those people down the road, whose name we don't mention. So, you know, that must be disappointing when you play such you 40 odd goals, for goodness sake. You lose out of a team, don't you?
Yeah, and you can't recover from that. You really can't. And you know, Rory came in. Rory was always third choice in that first season that I joined, and the playoff season. But he stood up to it, and you know, Rory did fantastic as well for the next 12 months. And again, as soon as you start doing well, other clubs come sniffing around, and then soon Rory left as well. He went off to Bristol City, so that was the end of Rory. And then following season, yeah.
You were there when he scored that fantastic goal against Bristol City, weren't you? If I remember rightly, were you there then?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I
clipped
him. So,
so you take responsibility for that overhead kick. It's your goal, is it?
Well, I'll take the assist. You can have the.
I mean, in terms of goals you've seen, that has to be up there, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's one of them wonder goals, isn't it? Which the famous one in the Premier League is the Trevor Sinclair one for me, and you know, Rory wasn't too far behind, if not just as good. But it was spectacular.
Yeah, and they mentioned the Wayne Rooney a goal against Man City, of course, but for me, the Rory Fallon goal will always be better.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you noticed, but there was a brief moment when the whole crowd went, "He didn't, did he?" And then went bonkers. It was an extraordinary moment.
It is against your rivals as well. It's you know, it's every fan's dream, every player's dream to do that against your rivals. Yeah, it was just a goal.
Injuries, of course, play a part, don't they? But injuries play a part. In fact, that you moved into centre midfield because Matt Hewlett got injured, and so you moved back into centre midfield.
Yeah, I mean, I only played not many games, only a handful to memory. But when I did break into Swindon, I was playing right back. I played kind of quite a lot of games at right back, and then it was just a case of Andy King getting that trust that when he believed I was ready, he could move on Alan Reeves. Obviously, Alan Reeves' legs were pretty much gone, as were AD Vivash. So I think he always had me and Matty Haywood to be his number two, the two centre halves. But I showed in training I could handle the ball. I was always comfortable to play midfield, and I did a few games centre mid. I think I scored against Bournemouth. Well, I did score. I remember it well. A volley against Bournemouth away, playing centre mid. But no, I was never good enough for centre mid. It was only going to be centre half really for me.
That's quite a partnership, though, Matt Hayward and you. I mean, we've talked to Matt Hayward many times, and how much of understanding comes in a combination like that? Do you know when to go? He knows when to go. How does that work?
Yeah, it takes a bit of time, but I soon realised how dominant Matt was in the air. And obviously he was a big lad anyway, but, he had the aggression and he was very dominant in the air. So anything through the middle, which was, oh, is it me, is it you? I soon just used to let Matty go for it, and I'd try and sweep up for him. And it was very rare that he'd lost a header, so there was not much running for me in behind, which was good. But that partnership, I do think, even like today, I think it is good to have a dominant centre half who goes for everything, or just the ones down the middle. If there's any indecision, just let the dominant one go through, and the other guy just sweep up. And I wasn't quick by any means, but I was quite, I was fairly quick. I was quick enough to sweep up, so that was our kind of partnership, I believe.
I mean, obviously things do start to go wrong at Swindon, but you also get the captaincy. So as a footballer, how important is it to be named as captain?
It's an honour. For me, a captain's the guy who gets to lift the trophy, and comes responsibility as well, and that's off the field as well as on the field. But for me at that age, 23, it was all about captain, trying to be a leader on the pitch and getting your hands on some silverware, because that's my memory, is watching captains at FA Cup finals lifting that trophy and league titles, and I wanted to be lifting silverware for Swindon. That was my excitement about the role. But I know it's a lot more than that now, especially off the field. You have to do so much off the field in the community and that. But at that age, it didn't really cross my mind, that side of it.
Sure. I'm going to get onto the season where the relegation came up, of course, because that was a pretty horrendous season, wasn't it? And how was it in the dressing room?
I think, like you mentioned, anyone who was playing well soon got sold or left in that team from the previous season. And I think that the relegation season, we were a very, very young team, really, really young. A young captain, myself, 23. I don't think there might have been one, if not two, players older than me, but the average age must have been 21, 22. It was always going to be difficult, and unfortunately, it was. We didn't have a goal scorer that could get us to 20 goals, which you need to survive in the league. It was difficult. Obviously, Andy King, I think he went during that season, and then Ifeanora came in. It was his first job. He was inexperienced, and it just wasn't enough. We just weren't good enough. I don't think didn't have any experience, and it was inevitable, to be honest. You can't just keep selling players and getting rid and replacing them with youth academy lads. It just wasn't going to happen.
So you experienced in your 3 years at Swindon the highs and the almost highs, and unfortunately the lows. So as a footballer, what do you take on board from
that? You just got to carry it forward and learn from your mistakes and your experiences. The playoffs was a great high. It was, it was touching distance to playing in the Championship. And at the time, you do think you'll get another chance. But then as the years go by, you realise that might have only been your one and only chance to do it. Same with relegation. Once you've tasted relegation, first and foremost, it's on your CV. Nothing you can't get rid of that fact that you've been relegated. But you've just got to make sure that it doesn't happen again. And you do everything to avoid that ever happening again.
I'm going to move on to when you leave Swindon then, because I know you're keen to clear up some of the misinformation that's been put about this. Now, a lot of people would say you went for the money. Now, I've always thought this, that if you're a professional footballer and you get offered a good contract, it's very difficult to turn it down. But you got to the end of the season, the relegation season. I think you had a knee injury, or you had an operation, didn't you? You had surgery. So take us through that summer, because Dennis Wise got appointed. You wanted the club to show ambition. Okay, there's ambition.
Yeah.
Take us through that whole scenario.
Yeah, it got to the end. I was coming out of contract, but at the end of the season, my agent and the club, we started obviously talking about a new contract. Verbally, it was all agreed verbally. My agent put it to me. It was going to be a 3-year deal. We'd agreed the money, obviously the length of contract, everything was, this was before Dennis White came in. This was all getting agreed. And I was happy, of course. I wanted to stay. I was the club captain, and, I wanted to play for Swindon. I was happy outside as well as being off the field as well as on the field. Everything was good. So I just wanted the contract signed. So you're asking the club to draft it, the contract across. And I remember they drafted the contract across, and it was only 2 years. And then I was like, well, this is wrong, isn't it? Why did they put 2 and not 3? So we went back to them. They said, oh, yeah, sorry, it's just an error. A week or 2 went by. Then they drafted another contract across, and it was 3 years, but they changed all the salary, all the weekly wage was different. And then during this period, I think Dennis Wise came in, and this is just what happened. He phoned me up, and he got the job, and pretty much, I think he's told me I was his first phone call. He said, Sean, you're club captain. I want you to stay. Are you staying? Yes or no? And I said, yes, I'm staying. We just need to sort the contract. And he said, I'm not getting involved with the contract. Just sort it out between your agent and the board, and just get it sorted. I'm happy to have you. So that's how it was. And then it gets to the first day of pre-season, and there's still no contract. There's just nothing getting put on the table for me to sign. And like you say, I was injured. So my first day, I turned in as an injured player, met Dennis Wise, and everything, it did look good. Dennis Wise, Gus Poyet. There was a new energy in the club, and I think they were trying to bring, a new professionalism around the training area, trying to raise standards, which I think it did need, and everything was looking good. But out of the blue, Milton Keynes just phoned me. It was Martin Allen, and said, "Do you want to come down, have a chat? I want to show you the new stadium." So I was like that to my agent. Obviously, you ask your advisor, and he said, we'll go down and have a chat, because Swindon, for whatever reason, they're just not putting that contract on the table for you to sign.
Because you're technically a free agent at this point, aren't you?
I think so, yeah. I think pretty technically a free agent. So I went down to MK, and they showed me around the stadium, which was nearly finished. It was going to be played. We had one more season in the hockey stadium, and then it was into this brand new 40,000-seater stadium at MK. They were obviously showing off about the ambition, the players that they were signing. They just signed Keith Andrews, who went on to play for Ireland from Hull. He was, John Paul McGovern, who was at Chef Wed. He just had the most assists in League One. I think he played for Swindon.
He did, yeah.
Years down the line, so he was a great signing, and they wanted me. And they offered the contract. It was there in front of me, and they said, this is what it is. And from a financial, it was pretty similar to what we were having with Swindon. But I just went, obviously I said, no, I'm not going to sign it. I want to just think on it. And having had that experience to, the financial difficulties, not getting paid on time. And I just felt, you know what, I think I might miss this opportunity might not come. So, and that was it. I decided to, I spoke to Dennis Wise and said, sorry, I'm going to sign for MK. And that
what was his reaction?
He wasn't very happy, which I understand. But from my point of view, it wasn't for the money, because the contracts were pretty similar, to be honest. They were both really good, my best contracts I've ever had at that point. But from waiting for, I waited for like probably 8 weeks, 2 months, waiting for Swindon just to put that contract in front of me to sign. And then when they don't do it, you think, well, are they having second thoughts? What's going on? And then when you get a club showing you lots of love and showing you this and showing you that, and this is what we're doing, it was like, you know what? I think I'm going to just try that opportunity. And yeah.
Because there was one quote from Mark Devlin, I think the chief executive at Swindon at the time, who was reportedly furious at your decision. I mean, what would you say now? where would you? I don't want to portion blame. That's a stupid thing to say. But do you see the point I'm making? Where do you think it fell down? Was it you? Was it the club? Who do you put that on?
I'm not blaming. To be honest, I'm part of the blame. I partly at the time. I just remember the conversation with Dennis Wise. He said he's staying, and I said yes, I'm staying. And but the contract hadn't been signed at this point. And then I'm asking my agent, where's this contract? Like, because, as a player, you are very insecure, and you know what football's like. A contract's not there the next day. Someone comes along and they sign someone else and you've got nothing. So you do have to look after yourself. So I had that in the back of my mind. I need to protect myself. And MK came out the blue, completely out the blue. Didn't know they were interested. And I just thought it wasn't a split decision. I gave it 24 hours. And at the times, even though Dennis Wise had just came in and it did start like, all right, they looked like they could be turning the corner, I felt like MK was the place that I felt I could push on at that time.
So what would you say to Swindon fans who say, well, you jumped ship and you should have stayed with the club and all that kind of thing? I mean, what would you say to them to sort of get rid of it? Because you took a bit of stick over the years, I think, didn't you, once you'd gone?
Like I said, I love my time at Swindon. Mother of my kids, she's from Swindon. Her brother was a season ticket holder, so I've got a lot of connections in Swindon. Like you say, my son's family, his nan, they all live in Swindon. They're all big Swindon Town fans. So I do have a lot of love for Swindon, and it did hurt, to be honest. But all I can say is if there was a contract there and I had two in front of me, which one, it might have been a different decision. But when you haven't got an actual physical contract in front of you and it's pre-season July and you're still, and I'm injured as well, bear in mind, I'm still recovering from a knee injury.
Sure. I
just had to look after myself. But in terms of taking the money, it wasn't a money decision. They were very similar contracts, and MK were just keener to push it through rather than Swindon, who I don't know why. I mean, Mark Devlin, I don't know why he took so long, but then that was that.
I'll go back to what I said earlier. When we talk about loan players going on loan, and we forget sometimes that they're young men moving away from home for the first time. We sometimes forget that footballers are people who have responsibilities and they are earning money. It's their job. The word is in professional. And do you think we sometimes forget that as supporters?
I think so, because I think if you ask any fan, you'd always say if you say, for example, you work for a firm and they pay you £500 a week and you've been there for 5 years and another firm offers you £1,000 a week, are you going to show loyalty to your old firm, or are you going to go and earn twice as much working for another firm? I think there's very few who would say, no, I'm going to stay loyal to the firm who's given me, £500. And it's the same in football. It is a very short career. Footballers are aware of that. And there's money to be made. And sometimes you have to, take those opportunities, them financial opportunities.
How did you feel when you did play Swindon? Because I think you played them several times, didn't you, when you were at MK?
Yeah. I mean, the first game that season, so when I signed for MK, I was told by Martin Allen to stay away. He didn't want me to go to the county grounds. He said there'd been threats sent to the club about me if I was going to play, then there was going to be all that. So I missed the first one. But 12 months later, people soon forget, and you raise your game. You're raising your game against your former club. You want to show your former club that you still got it. And I think I scored. I think I did pop up with a goal at the county ground, and I didn't celebrate out of respect. And I will always have respect for Swindon more than any of my clubs, just because they were the ones that ultimately gave me my first team opportunity in men's professional football. So,
well, let's move on to MK, because it was quite a successful period, wasn't it? Again, you had injury problems, but it meant Wembley, it meant a trophy, and it meant a title.
Yeah, it did. And ironically, that season in League Two, Swindon got promoted, and MK Dons never. So it just shows you just never know with football. But the second season, Paul Ince came in, and we won League Two, and we got the trip to Wembley. We won the JPT, Then after that, we're in League One, and Roberto Di Matteo came in, and we got to the playoffs again in League One. And then Paul Ince came back, and Carl Robinson finished with Carl Robinson. So the good 5 years, we're always in the top five. I'd say in 5 years, we're always in the top five for promotion.
You mentioned Wembley. You scored against Grimsby, didn't you?
I did, yeah. So, yeah, to this day, that's my greatest achievement or my greatest memory of football, I think. Just given the fact that, again, it's just your dream, isn't it, to score at Wembley? That was my dream anyway, to play and to score. And my family were just in the crowd. I literally, when I scored the header, I ran over to my family, who were 3 or 4 rows up from the corner flag where I ran to. So for me, that's it didn't come much better than that.
How is that? I mean, for those of us who'll never do it, what is that feeling like? I mean, you said it's your best feeling in football. It's a towering header, I've seen it described as.
Yeah.
You know, if you're a centre half, that's what it is, a towering header.
Yeah.
But that, can you still feel the goosebumps of that moment? Can you still feel that?
A little bit, yeah. You know, when I look at the celebration, you can see it's almost like an out of body experience when I'm celebrating. It's just pure delight, and yeah, it's something I've never replicated since. So it was, I think, 55,000. So it wasn't a full stadium by any means, but there was a lot of noise, and all the lower tier was all pretty much full to capacity around the lower tier of Wembley. And it was just a dream, really was.
So a title or winning at Wembley, which is better? Or are they equally the same? Or is there no way you can tell?
The feeling I got at Wembley, like I said, I've never experienced since. But to win a league title that's the ultimate achievement, really. To go through 46 games, is it? Is that about right? Is that right? Yeah, 46 games, and to come out on top. You know, when you do that, you're forever, you know, cemented into that club's history, and that League Two winning team of MK Dons of that year will live in history.
And you got the respect of your peers, because I think you were in the PFA Team of the Year as well for that, weren't you?
Yeah, I think it was the following season I got in. So once we got the promotion into League One, we had another good year. I think we finished 3rd that year in League One. And I got voted into the PFA Team of the Year, which great achievement. Really very, very proud, and something I tell my kids about.
Either your house is sinking or your phone's moving. I'm not sure.
Yeah. On the move.
I hope the house isn't sinking. That's not a good thing. I read a quote from Carl Robinson saying he regretted releasing you because ultimately your time at MK comes to an end, doesn't it? And I think you got released after you'd played 30 odd games that season. So how disappointing was that?
It was a shock, really was. My 4th year at MK, I did my cruciate ligament injury, so I missed 3/4 of that season. I played the back end of the season, and then my final year was with Carl Robinson, and we hit the playoffs. And like you said, was it 30? How many games? So it was at 35.
37, I think it was. Yeah.
Yeah, 37. So I felt part of the team. We got beat in the semis and the playoffs again against Peterborough this time, and it was the usual, right, lads, see you Monday. And we'll go through who's staying and who's going, and it's, you know, it is nerve-wracking going in the office. But I walked in that office Monday morning after the playoff defeat, thinking Carl was going to say, right, Sean, yeah, we'll see you on this date, July the 1st. Have a good summer, we'll see you. But it wasn't. It was the complete opposite. And he said, I think your time's come up. And the knee injury, it slowed me down. I'd lost half a yard, which there's nothing I can do about that. And that's just the way it was. And I think he wanted more ball playing type centre halves with more pace, basically. And I wasn't for him moving forwards. But shook his hand, and what can you do? It's someone's opinion, and you just got to respect that opinion. But no, I was a bit shocked, and yeah.
So then you went on to Carlisle United, I think, and then I think there was an opportunity for a young kiddie at Carlisle to play in goal. behind you, wasn't there? He went on to be quite good, I think.
Yeah, well, went to Hibs first. Actually, had a quick year at Hibs.
Yes.
So I think that that season at MK, I was still pretty successful. We were in this good team. We hit the playoffs, so I still had a good track record and got me moved to Hibs. But it was a different level, the Scottish Premier League, compared to like the League One, League Two. And I'd never played Championship, hadn't played English Premier League, so I would probably liken it to the Championship, even though I've never been. The standard was better than League One, and I was perhaps out of my depth. I only played 20 odd games for Hibs, which I'm very proud of. Scored a goal, but that only lasted 12 months there. And then I fell at Carlisle, and that's when Jordan Pickford was snapped up on loan from Sunderland, and he was really, really good, And there's no surprise where he is. In my opinion, he's a fantastic keeper.
A lot of Everton connections, aren't there, in your career when you think about it? Keeps coming back to that blue team, doesn't it?
I know. Well, I didn't. He was always. He had everything. Again, just going back to Wayne Rooney, Jordan was similar from a goalkeeper point of view. Maybe he was just a little bit smaller than your average, but he was very agile. He could throw it, he could kick it long, he could ping it from the ball. Ball at his feet. He was very good, and he just loved it. And he was mad as well, like all goalies. I think you have to be. He was a bit mad, but fun.
Well, brilliant. I mean, you must look back at it and you think, I spotted something in somebody, like Rooney, etc., and they go on to really great things when you think about it. And I know you've been involved in coaching, which we'll get onto in a minute, because I think you're quite keen to get back into football. But we sort of wrap it up with Stockport. You joined as well, didn't you? Had a little spell at Stockport.
Yeah, so that was Stockport were playing National League North, and they were part-time. And I'd got to, I think I was 32, maybe 33, and I had two young kids. I'd never lived in the Northwest. I'd always been, obviously, Swindon, Southwest, Milton Keynes, Southeast, Edinburgh, and then Carlisle. And I was kind of ready to come home. I knew in myself I only had 1 or 2 years left. I did have an offer. I think Crawley came in for me, but it wasn't for me. I was ready to think about, not retirement, but, the transition. And Stockport, again, brilliant club, made me an offer and said it's part-time and it gives you a chance to do, anything, help with the transition. So I decided to come out of full-time football and sign for Stockport for a season.
And was there a bit of coaching involved as well?
No, it was purely just as a player. Yeah, I just went there as a player. And as we all know, when you get towards the end, opportunities do, get presented to you. But I was ready to have a break from football. It takes it out of you, the sacrifice, the dedication, and having two young children and wanting to watch them play football and take them to training. I was ready just to come out of the game and have a break. So I did my year at Stockport, and I came out of the game completely and just wanted the rest from it.
So where did Marine come into this then?
So I started full-time work for 5 years or so, and it was only 2 years ago, because I'm back based in Liverpool, not far from where Marine play, and I was approached to see if I wanted to take the reserve team, and that's what I did. So I had a young reserve team. It was all about getting young lads and trying to coach them and get them prepared for the first team squad. And it really brought the hunger back. That 12 months that we did really brought the hunger back. And it's now, today, if there's any opportunities out there, I'd certainly consider them. My kids are a lot older now, so I've got less responsibilities with them. And it's something I'd really love to get back involved with. And just, I've got a lot of knowledge and experience there that I'd love to pass on.
It always seems from the outside it's a bonkers old game to be a football manager because, as they often say, you either resign or get the sack. Why would you want to do that? What is it inside you that would make you want to get involved like
that? For me, I just feel like it's that competition of proving people wrong, maybe. And, I do think that if I got a team, if given the chance, I do believe I've got that knowledge, that experience where I can take a team through a promotion. It's something that burns inside me that I want to do. And whether that opportunity happens, who knows? But I do have that burning desire inside me to. If it came, I'll jump at it. To be fair.
And I think you wouldn't go straight to the Football League, would it? Would it be a non-league type job to begin with?
Yeah, realistically, I've been out the game for too long now to ever get that opportunity in Football League. But yeah, just some, it doesn't matter what, semi-professional. I'll start right from the bottom, and I'd really back myself to do well with any team that I had control of. And as we all know with football can take you on a roller coaster of a ride. You could be managing Marine, and in 3 years' time, you could be in the Championship managing someone else. That's how quick football happens. So it's like a lottery. You got to be in it to win it, and I'm ready to get back on that ride if ever it came. And if it doesn't, then I'm happy either way.
Well, it's amazing, isn't it? I mean, football. You mentioned Roberto Di Matteo earlier on, the crazy management game. He wins the European Cup for Chelsea and then gets a sack. I mean, that's how crazy the football game is, isn't it?
It is. Well, he was manager of us, and then he went to Leicester, and then from Leicester to Chelsea. So I think it would have been within 3 years of being MK Don's manager. He's in the dugout of the Champions League final, and that's football in a nutshell, really. Yeah. And it happens to any player. You can be playing League Two, and then Jamie Vardy. Look at his rise. He's playing League Two, non-league, and then within 6 years, he's playing for England. It can happen.
Sure. Right, 1 or 2 comments that have come in. This is from Claire. If it wasn't for players like yourself, Sean, trying to make it in first-team football at clubs like Swindon, we wouldn't survive. Such a shame you left too soon. The club still haven't learned from scenarios such as that. Get good players' contracts sorted ASAP. Mike says, great player for the club. Anthony McGee said Brighton got away with it. Swindon battered Brighton in both legs. And Tommy Mooney went to that club down the road but wanted to stay. And I think that pretty much mirrors your scenario. If I remember rightly, he wanted a 2-year contract, but was only offered a 1-year deal. But he had a young family too. So yeah. Security comes into it, doesn't it?
It does. You ask anyone what you put first, the job or your family, and the family's always going to come out. You're only getting a 12-month secure job or a 2-year secure job. You're going to choose the 2-year, aren't you? Unfortunately. Sure. And that's for Swindon. At the time, for whatever reason, felt obviously age wasn't on his. He didn't have age on his time, did he? He was early 30s, getting on a little bit. So maybe Swindon weren't prepared to give him that extra year.
What about Everton then? Because they've struggled for a few seasons. They've got a brand spanking new wonderful stadium. They've had a few penalties given against them this season. Where do you think they're going?
I think they've probably got another tough 12 months, if I'm honest. I think there's not going to be much money spent. And I think there's going to be Branthwaite. I think it's definitely going to be going in the summer. Maybe one other. I think they're going to get rid of two of the biggest players. I honestly do. And I don't think they're going to reinvest that money too much into the playing squad. So I think it's going to be a difficult 12 months for them. But the new stadium gives them hope. And if they can survive again next season, going into a new stadium, and who knows what investment's around the corner. If they get the investment, then they're a club to be fearful of in the future, I'm sure.
I'm sure you've seen it. I mean, it looks pretty spectacular, is it?
It is, yeah. It's the location as well. It's right in the docks, so it's a beautiful view across the River Mersey, and it's not far from my house, so I'm happy about
that. Another winner. Tim says another great ex-pro, says it like it is, total honesty. So there you go. Thank you ever so much for this evening. Do you get to the county ground at all?
I've not been for probably a couple of years. I did go, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 years ago. Like I say, with my boys, and they've got family there. Ever there's a home game, I try and take my lads to Swindon. I always will do. If ever I'm in the area, I always will try and drag them to a Swindon game. And yeah, I wish them all the best. Yeah, I really do. Yeah, really, I'm there.
Well, please, if you are coming, let us know, because it would be great to meet up with you. And I'm being quite selfish because I do on-pitch duties. It'd be lovely to get on the pitch and have a chat with you. So if you are coming anywhere near Swindon, let us know, please, and we'll sort you something out. So if you let us know, that'd be fabulous.
All right. I'll be brilliant. That, yeah, I'll remember that. Thank you.
Chris, hello.
Hello, fantastic. Thank you so much, Sean. I know it's been short notice, so really appreciate it. Really appreciate it. So thank you very much for tonight. Thanks everybody for watching. We have got a new signing coming in if anybody's interested. I think that'll probably be in a couple of minutes. They'll announce that. So they've done a couple of teasers. So we will be back next Monday. We're just working out who we've got on. We've had a bit of a shootout to a lot of players, so we've got some organising to do. So we will be back next Monday. So have a good week. Hope there's some activity down the county ground within the week, and we will see you soon.
Hang on, Chris. Barry Core is on Fools Rush In as well a little later. So if you want some more Swindon Town talk, that's coming up at 9 o'clock. So, was Barry Core just after your time, I think, Sean, wasn't he?
He was, yeah. I think he might have signed either the summer I left or the summer after. Can't remember, but yeah, I played against him. He was a big, horrible striker to play.
Yes. Yeah, I would imagine he was quite tall and gangly, wasn't he? The centre half, something centre halves didn't really like, I don't think. No. Well, he's on Fools Rush In at 9 o'clock, and as we say, we're awaiting news of that signing very shortly, which is really annoying because if they could have just put it out now, we could actually give that news. But we will obviously pass that news on as soon as we get it. Sean, thank you so much. It's been great talking to you. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me on. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. Thank you. See you soon.